Advance.
All right. Okay, so I'll call this meeting of the PUSD Governing Board to order. Thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate your involvement in our meeting. Sarah, do I need to announce the amendment first before we do any business?
I would.
Okay. Just so you know, the agenda that was originally posted had an amendment, and it was reposted again yesterday afternoon. The agenda was amended for the following purposes. The FY24 proposed budget attachment was replaced due to an updated secondary bond tax rate on the cover page to add information-only items to the agenda as well. When we get to the budget discussion, Mr. Moore will explain what the amendment to the secondary tax rate is. Okay, any questions about that? All right, let's begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. We all have a copy. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I do have one change before the motion,
Yes.
if that's, and it's on, section C, or paragraph 6, section C, subparagraph 2. And it's on the line where it's BRG 004138 in the amount of $45,963.63, Lincoln. And it should read ROOF instead of RPPF design.
Yeah. So we'll make that amendment to the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I move that we approve the amended agenda.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. Next item is the approval of the minutes from the previous governing board meeting of June 27th. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the regular study and voting session meeting of June 27th, 2023 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from the regular study and voting session of June 27th, 2023 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm going to abstain just because I wasn't there.
Okay. All opposed? The motion passes with one abstention. 4-0. All right, information-only items, summary of current events. Ms. Reed.
Yes, well, I'm maybe a little bit different face up here. Usually we see Joe or Clark, but both of them had summer vacations planned this week, and so you get me. They're sorry to be here, but not that sorry because they're having fun too. So I did want to make a couple announcements. Some of the houses for the teacherage have been delivered, so if you want to drive by and take a look at those, they're very cute and nice looking, and they're not quite placed yet, but they're on site. So that might be fun to take a look at. And believe it or not, summer for some of us is wrapping up. Next week we have a lot of staff coming back, like our school secretaries for enrollment and getting schedules ready. Our instructional coaches are coming back. The district office will be back to 5 days a week instead of the 4 10s. So it's kind of business as normal next week. It's hard to believe it flew by. I did want to let you know that we're in the process of learning about a new app, a PUSD app for parents. And it'll be an app that they can have on their phone, and they can access lots of information like news and calendar and student information. It'll be a great communication tool. So we'll be launching that sometime in August. We don't know if we can make it happen before school, but certainly shortly after school starts. And last but not least, I wanted to share a kind of a new procedure that we're going to implement that actually Clark asked Sarah to work on and start for this next agenda. What you're going to be receiving is a draft agenda for the upcoming meetings. So I know we typically post 3 or 4 days before the meeting the full packet, and it's posted for you and the public. But for you, we're going to try to get, Sarah is going to try to get a draft agenda out 10 to 14 days. And I have the next 2 board meetings here for you to look at. But please understand that these will change. It's pretty much guaranteed they will change.
Sure.
This gives you an idea of what we're thinking about right now. But even that July 18th, we just have a new consent item that we're going to have to add, so it's already out of date. But for the bulk of it, 75% of it is probably close to what's coming up at the next board meetings. And Sarah will start emailing those to you 10 to 14 days before the board meeting. It's kind of a weird time to launch it right now because we have meetings, pretty much back to back here. But once we get to our regular monthly schedule, you'll get it, 10 days before. So you can start thinking about and asking questions for agenda items. Hopefully just to try to respect your time and let you have time to prepare.
This makes me very happy.
Well, good. But just please remember, things
It's a draft.
change. Because sometimes things just aren't ready in time, or someone changes their mind. It's not because we're trying to hide anything, it's just that things change, so.
And these will not be discussion items in our regular meetings at all. So we won't
Don't-
be
yeah.
discussing draft agenda items in.
Right. And don't do reply all to the
Yeah.
email. This is just to give you a heads up. If you have a question, please contact Clark or Andy or the relevant
Or
person.
the relevant person for
Yeah.
that agenda item.
Great.
Any questions for Marty? That it?
Yeah.
Okay. Governing board member reports. Anybody have anything to share with us?
Pretty quiet.
I
took-
met with, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say this is not a board item, but the teacher closet's already getting busy. So teachers are getting back, ready to get in the swing of things.
Great.
I met with Marty and Kelsey yesterday. Still trying to work on the volunteer program, and both have helped me quite a bit to energize that volunteer force we have to work with kids who are maybe falling behind so we can catch them ahead, kind of with this Hegarty phonics program they use in elementary school for K3. And some of the kids that move on to 4th grade, we might be able to get the interventionist and I with the volunteers and get everybody trained so they can help with it. So I'm looking forward to doing this. It's a project that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm really excited about it.
Great. Just a couple things. I had each of you sign a card. We've had our first nomination for the Governing Board Challenge coin, and I'm going to present that hopefully this week to the person in their workplace. So I'll coordinate that, but thank you for signing the card. We will be getting cards printed up that say PUSD Governing Board on them so that it looks a little more official. But that is happening, so I appreciate it. And if you know of someone that you wish to nominate for this, the form is available. Sarah has those and she can send them out. So if you have a person that you'd like to submit that could be recognized by the board for their work, please feel free to do so. And that goes for all heads of departments as well. We really want this to get going. So the other thing, just kind of on a personal note, thank you, Cara, for running the meeting last week, or was it last week? Week and a half ago? Yeah. I was in New York City, and I just wanted to say that my daughter has a couple of friends there, one from high school and another one she went to elementary school with, that she met up with. And these are Prescott kids that grew up in our district for the most part, doing fantastic things in New York City. One's a fashion designer who participates in Fashion Week in New York City on a regular basis. The other is an actress who's become a producer for television and movies, and she goes in and fixes production issues for these organizations. So she's kind of the person they call to come in and do it. And I just bring that up because there are so many of these people out there. It's just amazing. And they connected and tried to get my daughter to move to New York City, which I hope she doesn't, but
Yeah.
it really kind of brought home again the quality of the people that we have in PUSD. And I'm really appreciative of that every day that I do this. So. All right. Any other items from governing board members? Okay. Next item is action items on the consent agenda. We all have that in our packets. Are there any questions or concerns about the consent agenda? Yes.
I have a couple. I am wondering why, maybe Andy, you can describe this to me, why we have so many end-of-year resignations. I see 20 on there. I don't know what that means. And a couple pages down, there's, heck, I didn't highlight it, but the different resignations, what else is it called? Not retirement, but replacements. Can you help me on that?
Are you also referring to the separation, classified separations?
I'm sorry.
The classified separations, is that what you're
Yeah,
referring to?
yeah. On page 9, I think it is. Let's see. Darn. Pardon? Oh, okay. Yeah, what page is
He's
it?
talking 34.
34 of the board
35,
book.
34. He's talking about the classified separations.
Yeah, classified, and then there's, yeah. There's end-of-year resignation, page, what?
This is page
34 of the board book. And then not change of positions. There's-
Linda, are you looking at the personnel report from the last set of minutes?
Oh, maybe I am.
I believe you are.
I don't know.
There weren't that many this
Yeah,
time.
there's not
Yeah, I think
too many.
There's no end of year this time, so I'm wondering if that was from the last meeting.
Okay, it may have been, because it's in the board book, so it may have been the drop.
It's in
In
the
the
minutes
minutes, yeah.
section of the board book.
section of the last.
Okay, and then all of those replacement, what's that mean?
The replacements, you said?
Yeah, personnel report certified employment. Did you see that?
Right where it says replacement? that
So
looks like
in the
board
July
doc, and is it
2023,
replacement or
In July
something
20.
on page 36.
So we did have all those teachers leave?
Well, not necessarily. They moved around, some of them.
Oh, maybe they were transfers or,
We did have some transfers and some internal movement.
Movement, right.
okay. It seemed longer than it usually is, and I thought, is that normal for end of year? And I didn't quite understand what replacement meant, or,
Replacement means that this is a person, so under status, you're going to see rehire, replacement, resigned. So if we're hiring someone new and it says replacement, that means it was a currently funded position like a second grade teacher, and this is the new replacement for that second grade teacher. It's kind of to help you understand the funding and why we're hiring them. So you'll see replacement under the hiring part because they're replacing someone who left.
okay.
That's what that replacement means. And then like under classified separations, you'll see resigned. So there's this month, there's 3 that resigned. And this month, you're also going to see the extra duty stipends that for next year for folks who do all kinds of extra duty.
Okay.
Yeah. I think maybe that end of year resignation was from the June meeting minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
And
that would be normal.
I tried to get through that.
Yeah, that would be normal for June.
Well, and I would say every position that changes would have 2 different, so if there's someone who resigns, you'll see a resignation.
Or
and then
retires.
Or retires, and then, let's just say, 3 weeks later, we hire their replacement. On the next board meeting minutes or report, you might see the replacement. So you have a leaving and then a replacement. So there's always going to be 2 names for every position that changes.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Andy, how many positions do we still have to fill?
Well, if
Are we
you're
doing
talk-
okay?
We're doing, I think, pretty well considering, comparing to some of the other surrounding districts. In the classified area, we're always still looking for paraprofessionals and bus drivers and mechanics, so there's a lot of positions hanging out there right now in that area. For certified, though, we're doing really well. I think we're down to 3 positions right now.
Okay. That's great. Go ahead, Sam.
On the consent agenda, I just want to point out the donations before we move forward. So there were quite a few donations. I'd like to thank Luke Gray through Bright Funds. He donated $347.50 and $207.50 for the Mile High Band and the track program, respectively. Casey Magnet, I think we know her as Casey Oakley as well, quite a volleyball player in her own right in her high school and college days, but she donated $260. I know her son Cooper is doing very well as a junior on varsity basketball, so great family there. Casey and Laurel Cook, $80 to the basketball program, and then Kristen Dicker, $80 for the basketball program to PHS.
Basketball must have done a little campaign.
I think so. There was one anonymous donation for $300 too, but
Oh,
you know,
wow.
we should
Okay.
recognize
Stan?
anonymous as
For
well.
basketball.
Are there any other questions about the consent agenda?
I just wanted to ask Andy quickly, we hired the band director, the new band director.
We have found a new band
Do
director.
we have a name on that yet?
We have not
Okay,
called them in
that's fine.
and signed paperwork, but
That's fine.
it's looking really good.
Okay, good.
Good. Anything else?
Where is the outdoor weather alert station going to be?
Oh, good question. Brian?
So Misty Townsend came and presented this to a district admin team. One will be at the high school. I believe it's for 3 of their specific equipment, and it gives us real-time, proactive decision-making capabilities when it comes to specifically lightning.
Snow days and stuff, or
No, this is
humidity, or what?
It's mostly athletic
this
field
is mostly
safety.
if you're outside
Lightning?
and it is not safe, this will give us a better way than our regular app or hearing thunder and then counting. So, anyway, and like last board meeting, I kind of described a little bit of procurement. This will cost a little bit over $10,000. They do have what's called a sole source letter, which they plea why this is more proprietary, because it's over $10,000, but under $100,000, we would have to get quotes to engage in business with them, and without having really a comparable other 2 vendors that do the same thing, we asked the governing board to vote to make it a sole source to bypass the quote aspect. And we do the sole source for two more proprietary things, or if the district has been using something for multiple years, and instead of just jumping through the hoops of, we use this assessment program for the last 4 years, and we've gotten quotes every year, and it's not good for the kids to change something that they already know, and the teachers know the reports, that also can be a sole source. And actually, one will come to you next week for that reason, and its assessment program. So That's the additional item that is not on your draft. Just,
And just as a point, I remember at homecoming this previous fall, our lights went out. Kind of an unknown storm came around and caused all the lights at the high school to go out. They had to postpone the second half of the game. We had, I think, 2 reunion classes in town for that got upset as a result. So hopefully this can help notify people a little better.
it's also multi-campus, and so a lot of times there'll be a call on one campus that it's not safe outside. And if the high school does that based on information during the day, well, Taylor Hicks is only, what, 1.1 miles? You would think that that would also be a location that should do the same. And so it does affect multiple, and I think we can have a gazillion administrators on it that all get information and then coordinate decision-making, and everyone's,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Any other consent questions? Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I make a motion that we consider the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, at this point, since we are in a budget meeting, we need to have a public hearing by Arizona state statute for this budget approval process. So at this moment, we need to have a motion to recess our general meeting and go into public hearing. So I will make the motion that we recess our general meeting and move to public hearing.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we recess and move to public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We're in public hearing phase. We've had one request to speak from Whitney Williams. I do want to just make sure we read. Let me make sure I get to the right page here. We're grateful that you're here to speak to us today. Thank you. Excuse me. Be sure that any person who speaks remains respectful and constructive, and that your words are specific to the voting item for which you've signed up to speak. If a speaker strays off topic for too long, they will be asked to conclude their remarks. Sarah, our board administrative assistant, will announce the speakers. We've got one tonight. She will also keep your time, and you'll see up here that you'll have 3 minutes to speak. If at the end of public hearing comments, the board has the opportunity to respond. This is different from our public comments during a voting item topic. So since this is a public hearing, we have the opportunity to respond to comments if you so choose, as the board or the administration. So I would ask that we not interrupt our speaker during her time, and if you have questions, you can write those down and you can ask or respond to any questions that she may have of us at that point in time. Are there any questions? Okay, Whitney, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for having me here. I would like to thank every single board member who is going to be voting yes on the budget today, and also thank the administration for putting forth such wonderful raises for teachers, staff, and across the board in the district, especially in a state where we've just reached the baseline, in a nation where we're one of the lowest paid teacher salaries in the nation. We have a long way to go, though, and so I love hearing people who have the intention of moving forward with continuing raises in the future, and plus fixing wage compression, which is an issue that we've just not been able to have the luxury to address, given that we've been reaching a baseline for the past 20 years. I wanted to specifically ask Linda a question in regards to something you said in the last board meeting, and I would love to hear your explanation in regards to your thoughts of the budget. So I quote, okay, well, maybe we can find this in next year's budget a little bit better, because you know I'm against this across the board 4% stuff every year. And now we are up to where the state is. I heard that in the Auditor General's report, and we're up there now. And I think that's something I'd like to see you do, is to give back to the kids who are really involved. They're not out there doing dope. They're not out there, not even caring about their school. They're involved in school. These two ladies here were just incredible young ladies. I am for the underdog. I really am. I know our teachers are working their fingers to the bones, and they're only maybe getting a couple $1,000s. Now they've gotten a lot this year. They're way up there now than where they haven't been before. But I think this 4% raise every single year, or 3%, or whatever you guys are up there now, so let's redirect something back to the families. I would love to hear you give an explanation about what you mean. And if any other board members or administration would like to respond into your intent for raising salaries in the future. And once again, just thank you so much for prioritizing teachers in this district. You're doing something that's pretty rare in Arizona. So I wanted to appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Okay. Do I respond now?
Yes, you certainly have time to respond.
Okay. Thank you, Whitney. I'm glad to hear that. I am a teacher, and that's what I want to see, is us being brought up. Mr. Tenney said that we were now offering teachers what the state average is. Is that right, Brian? The state average, we're about up there now with salaries for
Correct.
Teachers, right?
Last year
Okay.
was first year.
So the reason I said that was that I wanted to continue that with the teachers. But the way that I am interpreting the budget is that, how can I say this? Everybody getting an across-the-board budget raise, 4% for teachers. It seems they're the administration. I'm just going to say that. Our administration is included in that. They get end of the year bonuses also.
No, we do not.
Pardon?
We do not. Only the superintendent gets performance pay.
Okay,
Administration does not get
okay.
end of the year bonuses.
Okay, thank you for
You're welcome.
clarifying that. My point is the difference between a teacher's salary, which I'm going to say is 50 to 60,000 a year. Okay. That would be the equivalent of about a $2,000 raise, which is nice, because we've been trying to bring our teachers up as much as we can. But for an administrator, that is a $4,000 to $6,000 raise, because every one of our administrators makes over $100,000 a year.
That is also not true.
Excuse me?
That's not true as well. There's only about 4 administrators in the whole district that makes over 100,000.
Well, yeah.
And we have.
How many are you? I'm talking about our top administrators.
So district admin team.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. But in my mind, those administrators should not be on your coattails. You are the boots on the ground working in the classrooms, and we've been trying to support our teachers. And the difference in a teacher's salary and a top administrator's salary is about $100,000. So when they get a 4% across the board raise, like you, they get quite a bit more. And of course, our superintendent now is asking for 8.5% end of the year bonus, which thank you to Cara, she has asked that we put part of that on test scores improvement, and we're going to be talking about that, and he's going to be doing his goals and objectives with us. An 8.5% increase for our top administrator is $13,175 at the end of next year. We don't even know what his goals are yet. I'm hoping that he will step up and support our teachers as much as I want to support our teachers. So that was my reasoning for that, but I wasn't given an opportunity to raise that. Does that answer your question?
I don't think I can respond anymore.
Oh, I don't know.
The only thing I would like to add to what I think Whitney was suggesting was that when, I think what she implied was that you were talking about teachers as well, not getting a 4%
No.
raise each. That's the way, I believe that's the way it came out.
Oh,
So
okay,
I
no.
think that's the misconception.
That is not, I had even spoken to Brian about separating the administrator pay with the teachers so that we can keep you in a separate kind of a column. I don't know what it is, but what I want is our teachers to be promoted so we can attract the top teachers and keep those who have been working so hard here. I'm a teacher advocate. I always have been, I always will be. But I think we need to rework some of the things, and it's probably not going to happen this budget, but I definitely want to see some changes in the next budget.
Okay.
That's all I have to say about
Okay,
that.
thank you.
And
Are there any other comments?
I want to just make a comment because I apologize for interjecting,
Okay,
but I want to make sure that there's accurate information, only because I know the numbers and I know our administration.
Right.
We actually do have staff members that work at the sites that when you look at a 12-month position versus a 10-month position, the 10-month positions make more hourly than the administrator does.
$100,000?
We have 4, and looking at, actually, we have 5 with a new hire, staff members to make over 100,000. I am one of them, and I've been in the district 19 years in administration, and I just last year got over 100,000. So when it comes to the amount that our administrators are paid, they're also behind. And administration, just like administration and management within a company, it's not always apples to apples, but I can say we do have staff members on the sites that work with the kids that make hourly more than some of our administrators.
any other comments? I have. So I just want to say, I think the idea of raises to me is something that is, as we have the ability to give a raise to our staff, and I'm talking about every teacher, every administrator, every classified person, as we have the ability to do that, I believe we should do that. Inflation does not stop because we've reached any kind of level of equality, I guess I would say, with other districts in the state. This is the most expensive, or maybe the second most expensive city in Arizona to live in. And while we have met the state average with our teacher salary now, that salary still is not at a level that allows a single teacher the ability to buy a house in Prescott, Arizona. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. So, and we can't really get into that right now, but what I would say is that I believe in raises for all staff as appropriate. The one thing I would say about the superintendent performance pay is a requirement by state statute. So we must include performance pay in a superintendent's contract. That's a non-negotiable item. The way it has been structured in the new contract, there is set aside dependent on student achievement. And that's what our retreat will be at the end of September, is to discuss how we're going to review that so that we can make a recommendation for that performance pay, that portion of the performance pay. The other part of the performance pay is based on the evaluations that the board gives to our superintendent. And so that is not a given either. If the superintendent does not meet our expectations, they do not get that. Many superintendents, excuse me, I've read have refused raises over the years. And I'm not sure what our superintendent will do, but that's certainly a possibility. They may say that, no, I won't take a raise. But that happens in other districts for sure. So I think, excuse me, before we get too far down that road, thank you, Carl. Before we get too far down that road, I think we should decide, or let's have our meeting and discuss how we're going to do that evaluation, so that we can, I'll give this back to Carl. So that we can then come up with a real proactive plan to support our staff, including our superintendent, in whatever desire they have, but meeting their goals for sure. Teachers, sorry. I get choked up with teachers.
Yeah, I know, it's just
We definitely need to support our teachers to the greatest extent we possibly can, and I am all for that. So wherever we can, find the money for raises. I am 100% on board with that, and I just want you to know that that's kind of some of the background on the superintendent contract and why that performance pay clause is in there.
Yeah,
in the
when I
state
was,
statute.
I go to the annual report, the superintendent's annual report, and I've tracked it back to 2006, and the salary increases for the last 6 years have been in excess of $30,000. And that, to me, especially when we are either going into a recession or we are having to raise property taxes, I pay $2,000 a year for my property taxes, and 1,000 of that goes to the schools. About 500 some odd dollars goes to Yavapai College, and about 400 something goes, I have those cards, you know, the little,
Yeah, that doesn't
he
match
sends
with
out.
what
About
I've seen.
400 something goes to Prescott Unified. I'm on a fixed income, I'm retired. I worked all my life to have the retirement I have. So when they're talking about, well, city council's getting, you know, they're raising their property tax rate, Yavapai College is raising theirs.
Right.
We need to kind of be conservative about what we're spending our money on. And that's what I'm concerned about. I would much rather prefer to support our teachers through this as much as we can, and perhaps our top administrators can take a seat for a little bit. They're very comfortable where they are right now. I would have loved to live in Beverly Hills if I could have afforded it, but I could live in Long Beach on my salary and my cost of living in California. I couldn't afford to live in Beverly Hills. Would have loved to live there and work there, but never happened.
Well, now you know what it's like to be a teacher or administrator in Prescott.
Well, yeah, I know. I've had to go through that for 25 years.
Right.
So it's not new to me.
So-
It's everywhere.
So as someone who's worked in private education and public education, I would say that not giving raises across the board, there can be ways to do that, to stratify that, for sure. But it is not a good look. It is not a good way to keep people to
In the long run.
to do that.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the long run,
And
I agree.
I would question the amount of money that our superintendent's salary has risen, because
Oh,
based off of
I have it here if you want me to read them off.
Well, based off the information I had, it's risen maybe about $10,000 in the last 4 years. I
We've,
think.
when
Let
it
me
comes.
tell you. Oh, go ahead.
That's okay. When it comes to the raises, they have been across the board. Mr. Howard decided for this fiscal year, starting July 1st, he did not accept the 4% raise for his last 4 months of work here. I do believe that all employees, including the superintendent, received the same raise as employees over the last 8 years. And
Yeah.
there's been a couple of those years, especially when it was 20 by 2020 time, that the teachers were given 6% or 5%, and everyone else was given, including administration, was given less because that was funded through the governor's 20 by 2020.
So some of that is state legislature driven as well with the
Correct.
20 by 2020.
Yeah. And just, and on a side note, we cannot, just so that the public knows, anyone who's
Yeah.
watching this, because I know that there's a lot of YouTubers out there watching, we cannot just raise property taxes, plain and simple. We can't. And in fact, if we say there's going to be 5,000 kids this year, that's what our budget's going to be passed, that's what we're going to tax for, but we have to adjust mid-year, real time, and we don't have access to that money.
Right.
We cannot do
And that was the point I was going to make, is that our tax bill, you'll have good news for us on that. When I look at my property tax bill, Yavapai College can, by board action, raise property taxes.
Yeah.
I believe the city council can raise taxes by board action. We are not a board that can do that.
No.
We do not have that authority. So the taxes that are paid to the district are actually reducing and have been reducing since we don't have an override any longer.
Yeah.
So it's really honestly one of the lower property tax rates. If it's the lowest property tax rate of all of our neighboring districts here in Prescott.
Great.
And Brian, what's the average 301 payment that teachers receive, but administrators and classified did not?
12,000 this year.
So teachers received a $12,000 301.
That's great.
No one else
That's
gets
really
that
great.
except the
Yeah.
teachers.
And that's
Yeah.
based off of sales tax. So that's money that, as long as the economy stays good and we keep paying for things, teachers should get some additional money based off sales tax revenues.
And,
Sure.
and Cara, it
And
was,
that's just what I'm looking at the next year, that maybe we can look at these things and see how the economy is progressing or how things are going, because, Brian, when do you roll out every month you give us that proactive budgeting worksheet, right?
January is when we'll start working on the
The next.
24-25 school year.
2425.
And in March, you will get the proposed budget package, which
Sure.
is the non-mandatory vote, but it lets you know what we would like to spend in the upcoming year.
Okay. So, okay.
Any
I
other
just, the only thing I
responses?
want to say is, as a teacher in the district for so many years, I've always appreciated that the board has taken into account classified people. And we don't leave the classified behind
Yeah.
when we give raises. And I appreciate that, and I will do my best to maintain that.
And that's, important. That's important to me too, that we keep the worker bees all happy as we can, My only real concern is, like I said, so I don't want to stop the increases, but across the board, 4% needs a little thought.
Any other comments in response to Ms. Williams? Okay. I'll make a motion, unless there are other speakers that filled out a form. Okay. I'll make a motion that we exit public hearing and return to our general meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn, that's the proper term, our public hearing and return to general meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. So we are back. Our study and voting session. Sarah, do we have any speakers for our study and voting items? Okay. So item number 1 in study and voting is to consider adopting the fiscal year 2024 expenditure budget as presented. Mr. Moore.
All right. Just want to let you know why we had to amend the agenda yesterday. So the way that bond tax rates work is we pass a bond in 2015. We pay a bond's usually paid off over 15 years. And it's a secondary tax rate that raises the money in order to pay that debt that is due. And so every year at the end in June, we find out how much debt we have to pay off for the upcoming year. So it should be pretty easy. You have $844,000 of debt, and then you figure out what tax rate that needs to be in order to raise that across all of Prescott. Well, unfortunately, there can be a balance at the end of June 30th at the Yavapai Treasurer's Office. And that balance rolls into the new fiscal year. And with that balance, it then offsets how much you have to collect. So if we owe $844,000, or the taxpayers are going to pay $844,000, but we have $100,000 balance, that decreases our debt obligation for the upcoming year by $100,000. And that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, we don't get that report from the Treasurer's Office until the second or third week of July. On the budget, the proposed budget above the tax rates, it actually says estimated 2014 tax rates. And this is exactly the reason why they're estimated, is that these things crop up. Tax rates actually aren't solidified until the last week of July. Anyway, we found out that our balance at the end of June was $100-some thousand. So you take that minus our debt obligation, and I recalculated how much our tax rate needs to be, and it went from 0.071% to I think it's 0.0609. So it went down 11 thousandths of a percent. If your house is assessed at $350,000, it will save you $4 a year next year. So
Thank you for that.
That's a Starbucks.
We
right
can
there.
turn up our irrigation or what?
yes, so it is. But and to be honest, we didn't have to repost. That's why it says estimate. But we had the information yesterday morning. We made a call to Mr. Frere, and he said if we have up-to-date information, we should give the public as much information as soon as we have to preview, and not just update it at the meeting time. So we reposted, and that was the change. I do want to quickly go back to something, Cara, that you said, and it slipped my mind. When last meeting with the proposed budget, you mentioned about the increase of students. And my retort was that every budget year, I usually 30 to 40 kids increase. Keep the tax rate about the same, but we don't want to under-tax and then take a line of credit. I forgot something. So the ADM that you did see is more than that 30 to 40 kids. What I forgot to mention at that time is 2 legislative sessions ago, the legislators changed the way something called tuition in kids work. There are districts that don't have a high school. They're only elementary districts. Or they're only high school districts, they don't have elementary. Or you have transportation only like Williamson Valley. They don't have any schools, but their taxpayers get taxed for the kids there. So previously, what would happen is those districts, Skull Valley, Kirkland, Yarnell, Hillside, Williamson Valley, their district would receive the ADM for those students, yet we serve them. So I would give them an invoice for tuition, and basically their tuition in kids. They changed that in the legislative session 2 years ago in 2021, that this upcoming year, all high school kids that come to a district, we have to claim them as the ADM. Their residents do not get, and they don't get the ADM, so there's no tuition anymore. It's basically the same thing as a Prescott Valley student coming to PUSD. We claim them as the ADM. We receive the ADM. They're called open enrollment kids. We are now open enrollment-ing those kids in those districts that don't have a school or a level of school like a high school to serve them. So it did go up, more than the 30 to 40 kids because I had to find out how many kids this last year did I tuition the districts, because now next year we receive the ADM and our taxpayers pay for those kids.
So our taxpayers are paying for kids in Williamson Valley to go to school?
Correct. Just like any open enrollment kid, if someone comes from us, from Mayor, and is open enrolled, or vice versa, any student that lives in Prescott and goes to Chino Valley or Humboldt, their taxpayers pay for those students. The district in which the student attends school, their taxpayers pay. Correct. So the legislators did make it so. Now, we're talking 40 ADM. When it comes to 40 ADM in the scheme of 3,600 ADM that we are taxing for, it's not a lot. It does benefit teachers in the district because when we tuition, we didn't get any 301 money for those students. We also didn't get any DAA capital money for those students. Now that we are claiming ADM, the trickle effect, we will get more money and more money will reach the classroom, and specifically because of 301, and every ADM is like $740-ish. 40 times 700 is a good chunk that would be spread to the teachers in 301 money because of the change in the legislation.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
Yes.
I'm getting
So our
better
AD
at this after 19 years.
Our ADM is decided by day 12, is that correct?
No, we get funded based on the first 100 days of ADM.
Okay,
So every day a student is enrolled in our district, we get 1% funding for that student. So the first day of school through the 100th day, which is usually January 18th, 19th, dictates what our pot of money for salaries, benefits, and services are. Now we operate on something called current year funding. We have to make an estimate right now that's going to set our tax rates on enrollment that we don't know yet.
okay, so, so what is our ADM? I got that chart from Clark that says fiscal year 23, total 3582, which they say was a 4% increase in,
The fiscal year 22, which is 21-22 school year, so 2 years ago, our ADM was 3,491.
91, yeah.
Last year, and they recalculate ADM every day, all the way through the end of July. So even current, this last year, 22-23, our ADM is being recalculated from January 18th. And they do that all the way through the end of July. It's called reconciliation. And so as of the time I did this proposed now adopted budget, it was 3,580 in the 22-23 school year. And we are setting our proposed budget, thus the tax rates, at 3,662 ADM. Once again, some of that 80 increase is due to the legislation, and some also is we have to make sure that we are not undershooting our estimate, because we are one of the few districts that 100% of our money comes from our taxpayers. And so if we say 3,000 students are going to come and 4,000 come, we're out millions of dollars because we get no money from the general fund. So you got to be good at this in order not to be in that position.
Okay, I know this is off topic just a tad bit, but how's our enrollment doing? Anybody know?
No, we're letting principals and secretaries and everybody get back, because there's a lot of new enrollments sitting in those
Oh, so
inboxes
we're
for
not,
secretaries.
okay. Okay,
Yeah, we'll
gotcha.
know more next week when we have our first DLT.
Oh, nice, thank
I
you.
hold my breath from August 5th through the 12th day of school, because after 10 days, anyone who hasn't showed up is called a 10-day withdrawal. Literally, the 11th day is about the best accurate enrollment you're going to get, because we have to count kids in that didn't show up for the first 10 days.
So I show fall enrollment was 4,082, but ADM was 3,786.
Correct. And when I emailed you the other day, did that make sense about ADM versus head counts?
Kind of.
ADE
I'm trying to
and
catch on
budget,
to that.
I deal with ADM. When you look at the state who's paying money to districts, they deal in ADM. Kindergartens are only funded half. So even though that there's a seat in a desk in kindergarten, we only get a half an ADM for a kindergarten student, same with the preschool. The teachers feel head counts. They feel the number of bodies in the rooms. That's the class size balance between class size programs and raises that our proactive budgeting is all about.
Right.
So we talk head count when we go into our Power School information system. Funding is ADM. Last year we had 4,000 plus head counts.
Yeah.
On the
It's still
100th
being
day.
advertised in the new book is 4,000 kids, so
Which
don't
is
think that's
great.
Exactly right. Because the ADM.
Clark put it out.
Yeah,
Linda,
that's
you have to-
accurate.
Well, that's accurate.
Absolutely. On the 100th day, we had 4,000 bodies in our, we had 4,000 students enrolled on the 100th day.
Yeah, the way it was always explained to me, and the way I understood it, Linda, if it helps, is it's seat time. So there's only so many hours per seat time. Even though there's a physical body in there, only, a student may only have a fraction of seat time because they're attending CTED or or there's kindergarten or what.
So they
and it all
transferred
right.
later in the school year?
Correct.
So so those hours start to deduct. There's a number for each student, and there are fractions of students based off of, and that's what ADM represents.
Correct.
And that's how the
Student
The other-
enrolls January 17th, the day before the 100th day. We get 1% of funding for that child.
Yeah,
We get $50.
I think
Actual
what you've already mentioned too, but to me, you have to remember too, the babies, our kindergartners, only count as a half a kid
right.
for your
because they-
ADM. So
yeah.
your enrollment's going to be your head count will be much higher than your ADM, because they only count as a half a
Always.
kid.
And
And
our
there's-
head count's 4,000. I believe it hopefully will be this year. And hopefully our ADM is around 3,600, which is both pre-COVID higher.
So on the budget in the packet,
Yes.
I'm looking at the 2023 ADM and the 24 ADM, and
Yep.
they don't match the numbers that you mentioned. Is that a change that needs to be made?
Are you talking about on the summary page at the end?
Yes.
This is why my job is so much fun. That is not, those, and let me pull it up. That's called residence.
Okay.
So, which page is that?
It's, let's see,
Do you want-
of the.
Oh, there
Yeah,
it is. I wasn't scrolled.
65 of the.
So if you notice to the left of it, that's called attending, which is different than residence ADM.
Okay, okay. Maybe that's more weedy. than we
Yeah,
need
it's
to get
weedy,
into
trust
right
me.
now.
It's like a moving target.
It's Arizona school funding.
Yes.
Isn't that fun?
And then there's something called limited ADM.
Okay. Okay.
Come to my office sometime, we can have fun.
So I totally trust that you are doing the right thing. I just want to be sure we don't have to amend this
No,
before we vote on it.
no. What you see on that summary page does not correlate directly to our funding.
Okay.
It is different because the attending asterisk of
Okay.
that number.
But our tax rate did go down.
Yes.
Bottom line, how many fraction of a percent? 11.11.
So, yes, and so my two points to it was the reason why we had to post again, and Cara, you were astute about the ADM being more than actually it's more than what I said. It's because of that legislative piece 2 years ago.
I figured you were just estimating, like subtract estimating.
I know,
chance I can move that we adopt the fiscal year 2024 expenditure budget as presented?
Thanks.
Yes.
please.
I would second that. So
Okay.
would Stan.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the fiscal year 2024 expenditure budget as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. So the motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. The next item of business is to consider approving the School Facilities Oversight Board terms and conditions for acceptance of monies from the Building Renewal Grant Fund for PUSD school sites as presented. And there are exhibits in your packet. Mr. Moore again.
This isn't the first time these come in front of you when we have building needs because we don't get basically enough building fixer-upper money. We have to jump through hoops for the School Oversight Board. There are 8 items on here. We're trying to get new roofs on 4 of our buildings. We've went through an assessment process which showed that they are desperately in need of new roofs. Now we're going through, and we got money to have them designed by an architectural firm, and that's the 3 roofs, and then one was, what was it, Stan? RPPD?
Yes,
The roof. All right.
Weatherization.
Then there's 4 weatherizations. Weatherizations are basically keeping the weather out. They're your windows, they're your doors, they're the structural aspects of your walls. Mile High's windows and doors, that was $2 million about 4 years ago. That was through a weatherization project. And so we're asking for 4 sites to have a weatherization assessment, and we were granted those funds as well. So we were granted 300-some thousand of SFB funds, and you need to vote on the terms and conditions in order to get that money.
And again, this is not money coming from our M&O. This is state-approved money that we can apply for and get.
Correct.
Do we usually get it? Is it
Usually we do.
It
Oh,
is,
good.
it
when
is
there
lots
wasn't
of red tape and it's lots of hoops, and it'd be a lot easier if we just got the money. I'll just throw that out there.
But many districts don't go through this
No.
process because of the red tape and the hoops that they have to go through. So, appreciate our business office doing this and helping with our old facilities.
Yeah, Brian, I know it's not easy, but how is the School Facilities Board fund, how is it kind of situated, kind of in retrospect? Over the years, it's really diminished, so they really scrutinize what you're submitting?
Actually, ever since the lawsuit,
Yeah.
or the proposed lawsuit, they really kind of took it a little bit more serious. They've made some internal changes. There's still hoops, and I'm the one who jumps through them, so come to my office, we can talk about that as well. It's more funded than what it was, but it's still significantly, I think next year it's 200 million, which is a
That's their
significant
budget.
increase. But I think going into July 1st, 80 million's already earmarked to projects before the first of the fiscal year even started.
And that's every public institution, K through 12, can apply for those,
Yeah.
right?
So
Public and
It's-
charter, correct?
I think so.
Yeah. It's not a lot.
I don't know. No, it's not. I mean, just if we get the roofs, if we get that's my Wisconsin coming out. If we do, because we got the design, after the design is done, the money you're approving, we will pass that to a vendor that will either be an IFB procurement bid or someone's on a state contract that the business office will pick. It'll be about 5.5 million just for those 4 roofs. And 2 million goes very fast.
Yes, sir. Good. Well, thanks for doing that again. That's great.
Yeah, just the 4 HVAC units at Hendricks, it was $120,000, so.
Can I ask you on, like, Mile High, it's 135.4. Is that because of the square footage, or what is that?
It's
That's the highest one, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's the architectural firm that does this work
Oh,
that said this is how much it will cost for that building to design a roof.
But yes, that,
I-
of these facilities, that is the
That's the
largest
biggest,
school.
Oh,
Okay,
It's
I
also,
figured that.
you know, it's pretty old too, 1930-ish. The main buildings were built, so, yeah.
Yeah, I
And they
understand.
haven't been
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, no, we didn't come up with this. That was my answers when it came to that. It was the architectural firm, but it's the complexity of the roof.
And that's a good estimate then
Yeah.
that they've submitted. It's not like it's like a low bid kind of a thing and we'll get
No.
change orders on all the time.
No. And once again, this is school facilities board money. And if anything changes by 10%, it's got to come back to the governing board for a vote anyway. And so these are good solid numbers, and it's a company that's been doing this for a long time and worked specifically with the school facilities board on a lot of roof projects.
Needs to be done.
And we've had it come back to us with the bleachers at the high school, actually, when we had supply chain issues and the cost went up and we had to reapprove another school facilities
Okay.
allotment for that.
Yeah,
So,
as they do. That,
Yeah,
that happens.
yeah, so, but are there any other questions about this item? Okay. Can we get a motion to approve the School Facilities Oversight Board terms and conditions for acceptance of monies from the Building Renewal Grant Fund for PUSD school sites as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Item number 3, consider approving students recommended for early entrance into kindergarten for the 23-24 school year. Ms. Reed.
So, public schools are required to enter kindergarten students who turn 5 by August 31st if their parents want to enroll them. But we also may optionally enroll students who turn 5 between September 1st and December 31st. And what we do is we take those, we call them early kindergarten entrants, and we screen them, we look at their preschool records, we look at any other evidence that parents might have to show that they are kindergarten ready, and evaluate their readiness. It's really important. Kindergarten is the foundation of their K-12 academic career, and we typically enter about 60% of those that request it, and then 50 to 60. And then when I monitor those kiddos, I often see that almost half of them still struggle. And so we really try to be careful. And so anyway, this year we had 5 parents request application for early entrance. And of those 5, we felt that 3 demonstrated academic, language, and motor skill readiness. And this has to be approved by the board per policy, and so we're recommending that we accept these 3 children for kindergarten. I always do tell them that if they're not successful, there is an option that we may revoke that enrollment and ask them to wait a year. And we always try to find them a place at our preschool if we can. So I always bring this to you in July, and typically we have more applicants that don't realize school starts so soon, and I already have 1 request today for another early entrance. So I'll be bringing this back to you again in August. So,
Can I ask some questions
Sure.
about that?
Yeah.
What kind of an assessment do you do? Is it verbal? What?
It's both. We're looking at verbal and written skills, their motor skills. It's called the Brigance Early
yeah.
Screener.
Okay.
It's very, basic. It looks at their vocabulary and their speaking ability. It looks at their numbers. Not only can they count, but can they group into numbers? Can they identify their letters? And draw shapes? And then draw a person. As you know, developmentally, kiddos progress in their, you've probably seen with your own children, that they progress in their drawings where it starts with a head and 2 arms and 2 legs, and then eventually they add the trunk and the nose, and so that's a developmental marker as well. So we look at all those things, but we also consider, have they been to preschool? Are they able to speak with the kindergarten teacher and advocate for themselves? Are they able to sit and attend? Sometimes kiddos just really aren't ready to be in class all day. So that's what we look at.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I move to approve the 3 students recommended for early entrance into kindergarten for the 2023-24 school year as presented.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve students for early entrance into kindergarten for next school year. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. Our final voting item is to approve RFP 24-01-29 for financial audit services to be awarded to Heinfeld, Meach and Company, PC, as presented. Brian.
Auditing services is something that's mandatory. We get independently audited every single year on lots and lots of stuff. That audit report is then turned into the Auditor General, and depending upon how we do, it either is good or bad. But it's an independent audit firm, and you have to go to a request for proposal every 5 years, and ours was up last year. And so we went through that proposal. 2 companies did submit a proposal. We went through a committee rubric process, and Heinfeld and Meach was the highest point, and we are recommending for the board to vote Heinfeld and Meach's award letter to go to them for our auditing services for the next 5 years.
Is this who we had last year?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, my experience with them, they're very professional, probably one of the premier ones, even for the price. Yeah.
They are thorough. They do probably 80% of the districts, 70%.
Yeah.
And if you can't learn from them, because it's really a partnership. It's a partnership, and our audit is a time to learn, reflect, and change practices so that we have better controls over our systems. And we are quite regulated when it's to what we do.
Are there any other questions about this item? Okay. Can we get a motion to approve RFP 240129 for financial audit services to be awarded to Heinfeld, Meach and Company, PC, as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And the motion passes. Okay, information and discussion items. Mr. Moore, your budget summary report.
As presented, and next week will be the first one for this upcoming fiscal year.
Thank
Okay,
you.
You're welcome.
thank you.
Oh, one question. I didn't read it. I'm sorry. How much do we have on our rollover, whatever, carryover?
I cannot answer until you use the right term.
Carryover?
Carry forward. You were
Carry
wrong
forward.
too. We ended last year going into the 22-23 with 4 million. I'm estimating it probably be right around there, but I won't know until we can pay bills from last year all the way through August 30th. It's called the encumbrance period. So when the annual financial report is done in September, I'll know exactly to the penny how much that carry forward is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll write that in my book. Carry
You already wrote it.
forward.
Forward.
Not
Never,
over.
you will never get that wrong again.
Yeah.
Ever.
I'll get it wrong.
All right. Any community comments shared with the governing board?
No, a lot of parents asking me, what do you mean school starts at the first week of August? It has for a long, long time.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Our next meeting dates, we will have a meeting in 1 week on Tuesday, July 18th here But we will start at 4 with an Inspiration Lab executive session with pursuant to ARS 38431 for legal advice. We will then have our study and voting session, July 18th at 5 in the district office boardroom. Following that, Tuesday, August 1st at 5 here in the boardroom, and then we will plan for our governing board retreat to address all of those meaty issues on September 29th. We will also do a transition piece. The final piece of our contract with our consultants for the selection is that they help us with the transition and goal-setting piece at the end of that. So that will take
Okay.
place in that governing
Great.
board retreat on
Nice.
September 29th. All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.